today's news. Nothing to hear, nothing to see. All is well with democracy, and the good guys are in charge. Our lead story of the evening involves an incident in South Boston, where...
Not attempt to adjust your equipment. We are in control. This is Sinister Mysteries. Tonight, we bring you another disturbing case from our files.
Enjoy the rest of the broadcast.
Hey, welcome everybody. Little technical difficulties in the beginning.
Yeah,
Kind of apropos that we're talking about a haunted thing, and look, we're having haunting in the studio.
That was weird, and then it was that. So hopefully we're gonna be fine. But it pushed me out of the. Wait, hold on. Wait, comment. Okay, good. Everything's open. Okay, we're good. So number 63, my friend.
Yes.
Good stuff.
Welcome
and,
everybody.
Hi, Maggie. Hello, Maggie. I'll put a permanent record of it too. Nice to see you. This is an Amy. Hi, Amy. Oh, it is acting so wonky. But anyway.
Yep. Isn't that what always happens every time? Every time we, the discussion of Amityville comes up, things start going crazy.
Oh, well, let's not talk about it after tonight then, because this is unnerving. I typed hello, Maggie, then I typed hello, Amy. It launched hello, Maggie in the same frame. And now, so I gotta, okay, so hello, Amy. Oh, wonky. So, yeah, this is, hope maybe this is something that we're going to do again. I hope that we're going to. Amity Fact or Fiction, or as I have it in the banner, Fiction and Fact. So
Yes.
we're gonna, Craig and I are gonna unfold like a good, like Uncle Craig and Uncle Joey's bedtime stories about a really horrific thing called Amityville. Now, Craig, I have to be upfront because things like this are kind of complicated for me. Tanya and I have written a book, Roommates from Beyond: How to Live in a Haunted Home. And have helped people mediate and dozens of cases over years and years. So this is a subject that is near and dear to my heart. People like the Warrens who go into somebody's home to try to help mitigate a haunting. I'm the guy who got huge pushback on Coast to Coast AM, I think 3 or 4 years ago, because I said very little of what we encounter as field investigators I would categorize as demonic. Very, very little. Now, Ed Warren was a demonologist, whatever the hell that means. I've studied demons. I have books on demons. I've even encountered what I would call demons. I certainly don't call myself a demonologist, and I'm Catholic. So,
yeah.
So don't give me that argument. And the third one is,
I agree.
I wore my I Make Stuff Up t-shirt today that Tanya made for me, which I love. Because awesome. It's always thorny to be a fiction writer, especially a fiction writer who writes some horror or a good amount of horror, but also be a paranormal investigator and write nonfiction books about this stuff. Because it's sort of the Whitley Strieber problem, right? Like at first when I read Communion, I was like, oh, this is the guy that wrote Howling. Like he's simply trying to cash in with a good story. So here I am in the seat. So that's my disclosure. I'll shut up, dude. What interests you about this?
I think it kind of goes back to, everything. It goes back to the Linda Blair era. Just, you get the whole, just anything that has to do with demonic possession, anything that has to do with, always just has that draw for people. That's just people they have to watch, they have to watch, And the Amityville one is just yeah, as we get into, for anybody that doesn't know the thing, because now you've got murders that have occurred in the house,
Right.
and now new owners have taken in. They say crazy things are happening, and these two figures come in, and they come out with, "Oh my God, look what we found!" And boom, it just becomes a cult classic almost instantly, and that's why all those movies are made about it, and it's public domain. So even some of the movies come out, they loosely I mean, so you could have somebody that could do a story about the Amityville gremlins that live under the stairs, and they were the cause. So I mean, anybody can just run with, like I said, and make stuff up. They can just literally go crazy.
The numbers are staggering. Like, I had to check the numbers on 3 different sources because these numbers came up about, all the movies and all that. And I was like, there's no way that can be X. I want to save that. So we're going to start with, a bedtime. We're going to start.
Yeah. I mean, start with the beginning. This house was built in 1927.
There you go.
Said it's, it's an old Dutch colonial 5-bedroom, and it was built for the Moynihan family, just John and Catherine. And that, so it starts there. And then is it DeFeo? Am I saying that correct? Yeah. DeFeo family then purchases it, in 1965. And that's when everything goes crazy. It's after the DeFeos.
Yeah. Now, I love this book. Of course, I was familiar with Amityville. I had read the Amityville Horror. I think my mom had it on her bookshelf, so I was a teenager. This is a terrific book called The Night the DeFeos Died, by Rick Osuna. Now, this book, anytime someone has an alternate theory about something, especially that goes against something as entrenched and lucrative as the Amityville story, there's going to be pushback. I find this book very sound. So the DeFeos are Mr. DeFeo, Ronald DeFeo Sr. Now, Ronald DeFeo Sr. owns, I believe, a car dealership, Sussex County, very well-to-do, very connected, not always on the up and up. And the Sussex County police are somewhat, at this time, 1974, 1975, they're on the take. They don't have a great reputation. There's a number of inquiries against them and all that kind of stuff. So Ronald DeFeo, like many Italian dads, especially in the 1970s, so I'm 6 years old at this time, are heavy-handed. They're strict. It's their way or the highway. And Mr. DeFeo seems to be particularly brutal. So he has 6 children. 2 of them are older. One is Ronnie Butch, as they call them. Oftentimes in Italian families, the junior gets, a nickname. And he's been kicked out of the house. He and his dad have been at loggerheads for a long time. But there's also the sister Dawn, who's also, grown late teens. She really, really hates her father. So in 1974, and I can't believe it, I didn't put down the exact date here. Craig, you have the exact date?
November 13th.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh, right. November 13th, but not a Friday.
Not
that would have been even
that would have made it even crazier. I mean, it's like the movies. Yeah, the movies were crying that didn't occur.
Yeah. So Ronnie DeFeo Jr. goes through the house systematically with a .35 caliber Marlin rifle. Everyone happens to be sleeping in their beds face down. Brothers and sisters, mom and dad in their bed. He goes through the house, killing all of them. The motive is initially unclear. Ronnie at first says that it was the mob. It was a mob hit. My dad was mafia, this and that, the police, whatever. And they hit my family. I was lucky to get out alive. Dawn is dead as well. All the rest of the family, except Ronnie DeFeo, are dead. Then he gets involved with a lawyer. The lawyer comes up with the idea of this demonic possession defense. We'll get to that a little later. That was sort of invented Our little pals peeking out here. Mr. Warren is looking at me like, what are you saying? What are you saying about me?
I know.
There's no such thing as a demonologist? What?
I know. Well, before we go too much further,
Yeah.
like you said, I want to. The thing too is, for anybody that's not into guns or anything like that, we're talking about a rifle here that's going to make a lot of noise. And so the crazy part especially the story here is, and this is where the claim has always been that there's supernatural influences. So was the family under something, and so that's why they couldn't, kind of like an abduction where you're frozen, you can't move, because the fact, unless you have like a semi-auto, you have bolt action, you pull the trigger, you've got to put another bullet in before you fire again. So even if somebody's sleeping right next to each other, there's no way you are not jolted awake by the firing of that gun. So to that claim that there was some other influence, I know some people have used that as, that's proof that something was going on, that everybody was under some sort of like hypnotic, something was going on that keeping her, because the bolt action rifle should have alerted somebody else in the house, because I don't have the order of how they were. I think it started with the parents, if I'm not mistaken.
It was the parents first, and then it was the children, which comes really into play, really comes into play later. So so this lawyer, hold on here, William Weber. So William Weber, the cops are asking questions. They go, well, they're all lying face down. Then tox reports come back, Craig, drug screens, no sedatives used. So it's like, okay, maybe he sedated them all. So this, in the weird sort of way, as they're eliminating these things, the devil possession thing, like you said, if they were all in some kind of hypnotic trance, because Ronnie's like, for weeks, I was hearing these voices. They were telling me to kill my family. So Ronnie is in prison and they're preparing the trial and the house is empty. Before we move on though, Craig, my feeling, and Joe Redmile says here he believes the answer is yes. Growing up Catholic, I do believe that the existence of demons verifies the existence of God for the religious minded, right? Sherlock Holmes needed Moriarty. God needs the devil. Light needs dark to battle against, or how the hell do you know that it's light? You have a formal religious background. What's your take on that?
I think is as the way it is. There's just with whatever religion, that there's always the adversarial thing. Whether it's Buddhism, like you said, the yin and yang. There has to be some a contrast to show. I'm with you on this one. I think it's too easy to just claim demonic. As soon as something happens, it's demonic. It's demonic. It's demonic. One, because it's the old adage: if it bleeds, it leads. In news, it's like it's that sensational. It's like it's if you just go this pin, that that was me dropping it. That's boring. But if I suddenly think, oh my God, did you see that thing? There was glowing eyes behind me, and the pin went flying. Now you have something where everybody's like, oh, they're intense, and it's so I think a lot of it is done for one attention. It grabs everybody's attention, but it's also it's an easier explanation for why something happens, because it's just like in anything in life. If something negative happens, it's easier to say there's a demonic influence to explain the evil,
right,
than to just say somebody was just plain psycho and just did something so dark. It's just easier to say that there was a demonic influence behind it.
Right. And there's a larger mechanism here that I've lived, right? Again, I make stuff up for a living, and stories have structure. I've written about it. I've taught at length. Well, a lot of these paranormal shows, the radio shows and the TV shows, and it just happened to me recently, they want a good third act where the good guys, the heroes, battle a demon. So I was being interviewed for one of our stories that was in one of our books, and the guy was like, okay, well, what's the ending? Like, we need an ending. It was like, it was a horrific haunting where a lot of bad stuff happened, but we didn't know for sure. We had some theories. Well, how can we? And for 25 minutes, this guy is trying to navigate me to a Hollywood style ending. And Craig, Tanya and I were interviewed for our Point Pleasant interdimensional missing time experience. Same thing. I'm talking to this producer for one of the major shows, and well, how did your lives fall apart after you had this experience? Actually, they didn't. We met amazing people. Now we have a great reputation. We're writing these books. It's a whole great thing. I wouldn't trade it for a world. They took our act 1 and they put it in someone else's story. So Tanya and I were watching the show. It's on one of these major shows. As a matter of fact, we had some people up to the house recently, the Kusalises, and they were like, "Oh yeah, did you ever see that episode?" And the people go in the shop. It kind of sounds like your story. And it was like, yeah, because it was our story. So I think that's Charles is definitely right. But another piece of it is people like story, and storytellers are the one who are creating these shows. So anyway, so Ronnie's in prison. They're trying to work up this devil possession defense, which we'll get to again later. We'll revisit in the fact point of the show. And George and Kathy Lutz, who have a blended family with 3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, buy the house. Now, at the time, this is 1975, they pay $80,000 for this house. Not cheap, but it is a really nice Dutch colonial.
That's in 1975. That's a lot for a house.
It's a lot of money for the house. It's not too bad. And you know what, Craig? What I forget? I don't think there were laws at the time where real estate agents had to disclose murders, but the DeFeo murder was so sensational, the Lutzes had to know. I would say that the Lutzes had to know. Well,
I think, especially then, if it just had happened. I mean, we're talking less than a year ago. The town's going to talk. I mean, this isn't going to be so we're talking less than a year, and in the town, so this isn't a giant town. This isn't like millions of people. So I mean, is it walking around? It's like, hey, I hear you're the new owners of the murder house. I mean, somebody's going to say something. I mean, it's not going to, because like I said, small town, everybody's, there's no, like I said, it's the word of mouth is huge, at this point. Right. So to the fact that they wouldn't have known. I don't think you would have had to have a disclosure. You would have had some little lady walking the street. Oh, you're going to buy that murder house?
And the neighbors
somebody would have said something.
Yeah. And the house needed a lot of repairs, which really, Mr. DeFeo being well-to-do, that kind of surprised me. So anyway, here's George Lutz. George Lutz is a failed businessman. Whatever he tries doesn't work out. Goes from job to job. He tries to start his own businesses. He's in debt. But, Craig, it's kind of like Pacific Heights. And Tanya and I talk about this a lot. It's tragic to us when we take a case as field investigators where people say, this was our dream home. We each had children and we fell in love after bad marriages. We bought this home together and now it's haunted and everybody's miserable and tough, I was reading Joe's here. The good of free will must entail re-choices for sin. Joe, can you contextualize that? I'm lost. What is that? Do you know what that is, Craig?
It's a little bit of an expansion on what we were talking about. Where when you have free will, when you can establish, and Joseph, tell me if I'm got this wrong here, but it should be when you have a choice, like your free will to make your decisions, that there must entail a real decision-making process where you can be either, do the right thing or the wrong thing.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So,
and
that's kind of what he said back to the good God versus, it's a more, for lack, puff them on thing. So it's more of the intellectual way of just, coming at that process of, the choice of good or bad. I mean, it's just what it is. It's just,
I mean, and where it gets thrown, like we've encountered things that genuinely I would call demonic. But what is a demon? What is an angel? Right? some people think angel is like Hallmark winged, feathered, which is like not until the Renaissance. But then you have angels who were death angels. They were horrible aspects. They burned people's eyes out. You know, they came in thunderous language, and maybe they were ETs, and maybe some of these demons are ETs or shadow people or the jinn or who
the
the
gods
hell.
of old.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. It's really, really tough. So they last 28 days in the house. And I'm going to save my paranormal investigator opinion on the fact that this all went down in 28 days. I'm going to save that for later. But they claim lots of paranormal activity. Green slime running across the wall. Anybody who's seen the movie with Margot Kidder and James Brolin knows this stuff. Cold spots, disembodied voices. Cold spots, disembodied voices. 6 people died in this house. But prior to that, Craig, I was thinking about it. Not only did 6 people die in this house, this was a house where people lived in fear, where the father was violent, where there were terrible arguments, and dark entities, dark forces, dark energies feed on that like it's a frickin' buffet.
Well, because it was just, you know, because they bought, like you said, they bought it on December 18th, and not even by the end of the month. So, I mean, we're talking, because they say in the timeline, like I saw, they said later that month, which would meant in less than a week's time, they were already asking a priest to come in there and bless the house.
Right.
So, which means that according to their accounting, that things were crazy from the beginning, and just and that they needed something, and then that's where the claim that the priest heard "get out."
Yeah.
And that's, you know, so that's where, you know, so at this point, you know, like I said, if you're already freaked out about your house and now you had the priest come in to bless, and, you know, now the priest is like, I just heard something yell at me, get out, you know, that's not going to make you feel too comfortable living in the place.
No, not at all. And that happened. Yeah, that happens astonishingly quickly, which is a red flag. George is waking up at 3:15 a.m. That's the time of the murders. What do you mean that's the time of the murders? He systematically went around the house killing 6 people. We don't know that 3:15 a.m. was the time maybe of a murder, at the start of the murders, the finish of the murders, the midpoint of the murders.
Isn't 3 o'clock the hour, though? Isn't that routinely?
It's the hour of the wolf. It's the hour of the witch. Absolutely. It totally jives. Beds levitate. That's a very hard, very serious thing that really happens. Beds levitate. Hoof prints in the snow. Please remember that, folks. Hoof prints in the snow. Remember that. And a demonic pig named Jody with glowing red eyes. Sometimes, Craig, less is more. Sometimes cold spots, disembodied voices. Our daughter had an imaginary friend. Oh, yeah. What was the imaginary friend? Oh, it's a pig with glowing eyes named Jody. Now, in some of the later movies, and this is kind of disgusting to me, I believe one of the DeFeo's daughters' names was Jody, or they made it in the movie, and they made it out like the invisible friend was actually one of the dead DeFeo children. That's crossing a line. That's disrespectful.
It is, and that's kind of where we were talking about. That's where, because it's public domain, nobody owns the rights to this thing. It's pretty much, you can take, you could have Rob Zombie come in and do a complete, different version of it, where DeFeo, that DeFeo was murdered in a, Texas chainsaw, massacre style, and this is the way that, I mean, they could change it in any way they want to. And that's where, Captain Spaulding could come walking down the stairs, that version. I mean, it's just, they could change it however they want.
Yeah. And it's stunning how often that has been done. It makes me shudder. So again, just following the story as it's come to culture. Jay Anson, who is a TV writer, does some writing of advertising and things like that. He writes the Amityville Horror in 1977. Now, keep in mind, 1977 is Son of Sam killings, right? Mm-hmm. Which have a demonic, right? The dog is telling David Berkowitz to do this thing. The terrific book Joe Redmiles turned me on to, called The Ultimate Evil. I'm going through it right now and I'm reading it, saying that there were really sons of Sam and this was some kind of satanic cult. It's very compelling. It's a giant book. It's taken me forever. Maury, Joe, help me out. Maury, someone, but highly recommended, folks. But interesting. So everybody's nerves are a shambles anyway, and out comes this book about demonic possession, more murders in New York. It presents the Lutz's story as a true account. This is how it happened. Thank you, Joe. Maury Terry. So you go. It's called The Ultimate Evil, folks. The book is based on 45 hours of taped interviews with the Lutzes. Becomes a huge bestseller. It's a cultural phenomenon. And then Ed and Lorraine Warren, just so we're clear, did not get involved until after the Lutzes had left. That's when they got involved because I think they smelled dollar bills, y'all. They investigated the house and they declared it demonic, an overwhelming evil presence. I don't know if this is for sure. Poltergeist was what, 1980, dude? 1980, 81, 82, somewhere like that. Poltergeist. This house is Kalia. I think there are roots of Lorraine Warren in that. This house is Kalia. So should I put this URL that you put up there?
Yeah, that's a link for Mark's book.
Awesome.
Yeah, they put it there, so that's you can copy that. That's the very small one. If you just type that in, copy it, whatever you guys want to do, that'll take you right to the book. So
yeah, same time as the Poltergeist movies, exactly. So I think that there's a little bit. They were starting to get, they're known. So it's good. It's good for the brand. Ed's a demonologist. What's the old saying, Craig? When you're a hammer, everything's a nail. When you're a demonologist, you don't go.
Well, everything has to be
demons here. No demons here.
Yeah, everything. Everything is definitely going to be a demon. So it's like.
Yeah, Lori has a different tiny URL, so everybody's pitching in tonight. But they get generated, I guess, when you generate a tiny URL. That's how it works. So, guys, click on some of them. Yours truly wrote a back cover blurb for Mark's new book, published by Ken Gusward at Dimensionfold Publishing, my publisher, Wallace Wagner's publisher, Mark Eddy's publisher, and Ken Gusward's publisher. So there you go. Yeah, so it spawns the Amityville horror movie 1979, which Tanya and I probably watched a couple months ago. It's cool. It's a good movie. I love James Brolin's like, oh my God, it's tearing me apart. He deeply regretted that. But we love him for it. And Margot Kidder is very cute in that movie and sometimes doesn't have very much clothes on. So let's see. And of course, Amityville horror, it's possession, it's ghosts, and it's poltergeists. And it's a cultural phenomenon. Everybody knows Amityville. If you say the Amityville house, at least people our age, Craig, I don't know if the younger generations know about this. I immediately see those two windows like eyes in the side of that house.
Yeah, I think that's why they got rid of them.
Yeah.
It's when it was like, I'm jumping a little ahead, but that's when during the remodel, I think that's part of the reason is they're thinking it's like if they changed even the physical structure of the house. That was both of those that's the combination of your clip.
Oh, I was gonna say,
you missed the first one.
Ever meet. No, he's only one of the funniest people. No, so I'll read this for Ron's radio audience because we're all one big happy family. Endorsement for Mark's book as we get ready to go into so this is a little commercial for Mark Eddy's book. Mark Eddy is one of those rare combinations of individuals, a passionate and professional researcher, a tireless podcast host and networker, a top-notch writer, and above all, one of the kindest and funniest people you will ever meet. Whether it's Mothman or lakes, lizards, Lintons, and Leverett, Mark's love of the Ohio Valley shines through in all of his work, most especially in this must-read book. So there's the back cover blurb from yours truly.
It's kind of a good little segue to kind of tease people of the upcoming program. That's why I said it's a little commercial, like what you're planning on doing with the creators.
Oh no, not tonight. I'm gonna hold
that's
that
what I
till
said.
next week.
Yeah. So that's what I said. That's a little tease for everybody.
Yeah, a little tease. I have an announcement next week. Something I've been
Yep.
wanting to do for a while. But okay, so here we go. So the facts. This gets interesting. I owe a good bit of this to this book. Craig, I'm going to be really, because you didn't read this book, right?
No, I've not read that book.
So I'm going to be really curious to see what you found out there otherwise about what I'm going to say. So we'll do I'll put it out, and then you I don't know if it'll be a rebuttal or not. We'll see. So this is the reality. I happen to think that this is very, very plausible, given what we know of the story. First of all, Ronnie DeFeo kept shifting his story. He never could keep the story straight. So you could go, oh, the demon's playing with his mind. It's making him crazy. He had a blackout. Maybe he's Sirhan. Maybe he's Mark Chapman. You know, maybe they're you know, the devil did a mob job on him. He keeps initially he blames a mob hit, which I mentioned. Sussex County Police, etc., corruption, it's rife for all of that. Mr. DeFeo definitely maybe is crushing bodies at his, you know, car dealership body shop to get rid of for the mob, different stuff like that. Ronnie then later confesses. Yeah. It was me. I did it. But there's a theory put forth Rick Osuna and some things that Ronnie DeFeo said. I mentioned Ronnie had already been kicked out of the house. The daughter, Dawn, she has a boyfriend. The father doesn't like him. They're at loggerheads. It's a really bad scene. And so Dawn and Ronnie and a couple of their friends, her boyfriend and another person, hatch a plot to kill Mr. and Mrs. DeFeo and make it look like a house robbery. It goes off script because Dawn despises one of her sisters who she feels always gets, you know, preferential treatment from mom and dad. Dawn kills the sister. The minute one of the kids is randomly killed in one of the bedrooms, the whole random house robbery thing goes kablooey. That's not meant to be any kind of pun, so I apologize. You can't say it blows up either. It goes up in smoke. I don't know what to say. Yeah. It gets destroyed. So Ronnie, in a fit of pique and anger, kills Dawn. This could explain why the multiple bodies. He goes in to take care of mom and dad. She goes in the bedroom, get rid of the younger one, and then between the two of them, or maybe more. But here's a problem. It sounds really good to me, but there was no forensic evidence for multiple weapons. Yeah. Only the 35 Marlin, the 35 caliber Marlin. No sedatives, no waking up from the gunshots. Okay, sir, you have the floor.
No, I agree. That's I said it's one. That was one of the theories that was thrown out there. It's like that this wasn't just, you know, he wasn't the only one acting out there, but just like I said, the forensics, they don't match, you know, just, and that's still, I think even still to this thing, I don't know if anybody has truly, you know, come up with a really good reason of why nobody woke up.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest things. Yeah. It's, I mean, just, it's like, I don't want people to, you know, back to saying, I mean, this is the part that a lot of people like on a lot of podcasts that deal with serial killers and everything else, is when you get down to these facts, because it's one of those, okay, you got a husband and a wife sleeping, you know, this isn't Brady Bunch. They're not, you know, they're not sleeping in two separate beds and two separate things. You know, most people are right next to each other. It just, if somebody comes into the house, shoot your wife or shoot your husband, you mean to tell me that you're still going to be laying there on your, you know, face down, sound asleep, and then you get shot too? No, it's like at some point the husband or wife should have been in the process of rolling over, and there should have been a different, you know, like face, stomach, chest wound. Something should have occurred, whether it was like the wife was shot first and then the husband rolls over, gets shot in the chest. I mean, something should have changed. But the fact that they're, you know, in the back, all the, you know, down the, like the kids, none of the kids at any point would have woken up in the with the gunshot. It's like somebody should have woken up. So that's the biggest thing. I don't know if, because like the forensics were there. I didn't delve into the forensics as much as I should have. Did they ever rule out some other type of thing, like to where, like, gas leak, to where something like there would have been something to where it could have put somebody like in the breeze, because obviously at this time they didn't have the forensics like we do now. I mean,
right. But they did
like carbon monoxide.
Screen. Right. They did do a talk screen. People went into the house. This just happened recently with Gene Hackman and his wife, which that story changes so much that I don't know that we're ever going to have the truth of that one. That one's spooky. I don't know if someday that will be a Sinister mystery. Maybe it's certainly
could. I mean, it just comes down to soon. Something happened to her. He was just gone because of Alzheimer's, and so he's basically the mindset of a infant. At that time. So he's doing, so it would make sense how things could happen and nothing would ever happen, but it's just, I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. And it's just odd that, like, so now the latest that's come out, that days prior, she was researching what she had, that virus that she got from the rat poop or
hantavirus.
Rodent infestation in the outbuildings, right? That she had this, but she was, so why not? I mean, they had all kinds of money and all. Why not get some medical? So, but anyway, that's not what this.
Why wasn't there? Why wasn't there people? You get there, and that's the same thing. It's kind of like this as we go. Well, I said we'll keep it rolling here so we don't get stuck on this part. But that's always just been the biggest mystery for me out of this whole thing, is how everybody was shot in the way they were. I mean, it's just, I would be more, if somebody came to the thing, it's like, this is my theory of why they would have all been face down. That would be easy for me to accept somebody's coming up with different theories, because something has to explain. I mean, because one, not everybody sleeps face down. I mean, it's
right. And you talked about being shot in the back and all, with the exception of Dawn, who was shot in close proximity in the head, which really does leave credence to the theory. And there were times when Ronnie was moving around his story that he mentioned or let slip that Dawn was involved. Because I think this guy was scared and he really didn't want to die. He really didn't want to, so the haunting claims debunked. So the first thing I wanted to talk about, Craig, really is the 4 stages of a haunting: manifestation, infestation, oppression, possession. Within a week, they're in oppression. That is very rare and almost impossible. And then, of course, the movies make out like George was possessed. That he was just this. James Brolin does a great job with that. Ryan Reynolds does a less great job with it, in the, what was that, 2005, 2006. So here's an interesting, I wouldn't call it insider information, but it's a once removed thing. Should I say who it was? Yeah, I'll say who it was. My brother-in-law went to high school with the 2 Lutz boys in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Is where they wound up. George and what was her name? Kathy, I think. Right?
Yeah, that I'm not sure.
George and Kathy split up. They split up, and the boys would never talk about it. They just wouldn't talk about it at all. But they did talk about it later in some documentaries. So, and they disagree. Which is interesting. Christopher disputes most of it, though some weird things happen. And again, Craig, 6 people die in a house that was full of violence, disagreement, people getting kicked out, that heavy Italian patriarchal energy. I wouldn't be surprised that there were some weird things, because most of these begin in fact and inevitably spin out of control when people smell money, fame, and opportunity.
Well, you and Tanya, like you said in the stuff, in the investigations that you guys have done, that was one of the things about the house, is all the furnishings were left behind.
Yeah, which is problematic.
So that could, residual energies and stuff. So
Mhm.
you could have something from the violence and stuff that stayed with some pieces. And so, yes, you could have those oppressive, feelings, like darkness when you're over in some place because, little kid doesn't want you in his room by his toys. And so he's trying to, tell you to get out. So you're going to feel unwelcome in that part of the house. And yeah, you could see that happening is because, the potentially the bed that they were killed in is still sitting in one of the rooms.
Yeah, great points. And also, there could be other things that are attached to that furniture from either further back, but it was so noisy in the DeFeo's house. Mr. DeFeo, his energy was so dominant that those things were drowned out. It could be that too. So it gets complicated. Now, one of the things that they have found out for sure in the book, they talk about the weird hoof prints in the snow. It didn't snow anytime around that time. So that's just pure BS there. As a paranormal investigator, when you start seeing that people are saying stuff like that, it really dings their credibility. And they suddenly have to, it's like you're in a romantic relationship and someone cheats. Even if you stay, it takes a long time to get back to where you were, if ever. So that's a big one.
Yeah.
Now, Daniel, the other brother, claimed in 2013 that George was into the occult and he was also abusive. So now the story swings back. Oppressive dad, occult practices, and conjurings of these things. Ooh, Conjuring. Ed and Lorraine Warren, Conjuring.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
So I found that very interesting that the two brothers are not in agreement about what went down. Also an indicator that somebody was zooming somebody. Did you have anything on the brothers?
Nothing so much on, I think, really of the brothers, just some of the ones, like some of the claims that the Lutz has made. One of the ones, like you said, that, the hoof prints, but there was no police reports filed. They had, so some of these claims, that if truly, I mean, like most people, if you're hearing like weird sounds, outside, banging on the walls, doing stuff like, you see strange footprints, most people are going to call the police and say, I've got somebody prowling around on the outside. Send somebody. None of that there's nothing on file. It's
Right.
either maybe they did, at that time, we're talking the 70s. So it's not like they have recordings of all the phone calls. They could have
Right.
been like, oh God, it's like, put on hold. Who is it? It's George again. Yeah, that's what you got. You got hoof prints. You got, okay. Yeah. We'll send somebody out.
Yeah.
And they just hang it up
what
and then they ignore it.
That reminds me of Paranormal 911. Do you ever watch that show? I think that was
Yeah,
another William
Yeah.
Shatner show where the cops are like, they called me for the 17th time and I had to go over. I had to take the call. And
what is it? Oh, green ooze. And the statue's glowing again. Oh, it flew across. Oh, it's okay. Yeah. Oh, all right. Yes, we'll make sure we send somebody over.
Yep. Green ooze. Jar that crap. That crap.
Oh yeah.
I've only had one experience in my entire, how many 2009, 15 years of doing this. It'll be 15 years in August, of any kind of ectoplasm that appeared on my finger. So that, it's the green slime coming out of the walls. I don't think so. So
I mean, even in Ghostbusters, he didn't believe. What was the first thing he was doing? Putting it in the jar.
Yeah.
It's
because it's there. So collect it.
It slimed me, Ray.
Collect it. The next residents to Crow Marty's had no problem, zero problem whatsoever. I will say that we are part of the equation. It's very quantum physical. So obviously Tanya being a very talented psychic medium, Rosemary Ellen Guiley used to refer to her as a psychic battery. Jolie, same thing. So you get those two together. Astacusalis is some weird crap happened when they were here. because I think the spirits were excited. Ooh, they're going to talk about this stuff, and they're doing a book about it. These people studied it, so we're going to show them some things. So those kinds of things happen. Some people though can go into a house and they won't have an experience. The problem is they loaded so much into this narrative. I would have a hard time believing that nobody else would have any awareness of any of these things. You know what I mean, Craig?
Oh,
I mean,
I do, because
you've had strange things happen off and on to you.
well, it's, I've told several people the story, like the shadow. I've seen a couple of shadow figures in the hallway here.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be if I suddenly told you one day, I saw the shadow I saw what looked like, a head pop out, and then I bolted out of bed and it was gone. I mean, there's no way it could have been an intruder. Well, then if I come back a couple weeks later and I tell you, Joe, man, it had glowing eyes and there were these horns sticking out. Well, after a while, it gets to the point where you have so much you have to remember. It's like you said it about somebody who cheats. It's like,
Yeah.
you have to keep remembering all these lies, and you have to keep over and over again, all these things. I'll be nice. I won't say the lie. I say embellishments. It's like the story isn't having the impact. Joey doesn't care about my shadow figure anymore. So now if I come up with something like, I could hear this scritching sound on the wall. Then, now Joey's like, oh, really? Oh, yeah, tell me more about it. Okay, good, cool. I got him hooked. And so, but then you come back later. So what sound did you hear? What sound are you talking about? And all of a sudden, the BS alarms start going off. And I think that's what happened. I think with the Lutzes too, is I think it's like they legitimately could have, most likely had stuff happen. They're probably, murders.
I agree.
But as it goes, when you start saying the stuff, there was glowing eyes, green ooze flowing down the walls. And, you keep coming up with these things. Eventually, you're going to have even an ardent believers are going to be like, okay, where's the stuff? Where's the ooze? Where's it? Tell me. You had to have saved something. The curtain that was tattered when when the demon shredded it. I mean, do you have some of the tatters of the curtain? Oh no, we threw those away. Of course you did. It's like
they were letting in too much. They were letting in too much sunlight, so we had to throw them out. So the Lutzes took lie detector tests. Anybody will tell you in law enforcement, lie detector tests are not extremely useful at all. They're unreliable. They're inconclusive. Paranormal investigators have disputed the findings between them. Like any kind of scientific experiment, Tanya and I love to bring in outside investigators. As a matter of fact, we brought in 525 guest investigators when we did our 2-year investigation of the Webb library. And I think that's why that book is as good as it is. Because it wasn't just two people saying, here's what happened. There were witnesses for everything. There were recordings. There were, all these kinds of things. Independent psychics doing drawings that had no idea what had happened before. All this kind of stuff. So here's most likely what happened. The DeFeo's defense attorney, William Weber, he is paid to get Ronnie DeFeo off. That's his job. He's his lawyer. So he's looking for angles. So he slipped and said that he and the Lutzes, and this is kind of famous now in the lore, made up the story over many bottles of wine. Because look, George is in over his head. I will say that oppression and possession, George is worried about paying the bills. We've all been there. And if you haven't, you're very lucky. Up at night, you're the dad, you're the patriarch. How the hell am I going to pay the bills? Kathy didn't work as far as I know. You got this $80,000 house, needs repairs. Your business isn't going well. Someone comes to you and says, maybe we can help each other out. You're going to listen. You're going to listen. And I think that a lawyer and someone like Jay Anson, who's then brought in, people like Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are then brought in, that becomes a series of conversations. Like when I'm producing a play or in Hollywood, they're doing a movie and you go, who would be great? oh, that guy would be great. And then that guy gets involved and goes, I know this guy, and you know who would be an amazing director who could also bring this wonderful actor. I think it started to snowball, Craig, which is what you were saying too. So they do these 45 hours of tapes. Anson doesn't fact check. Anson doesn't interview anybody. He takes these tapes and he sees a gold mine. He knows how to write a story at a time where the demonic and murder in New York, especially, like I'm saying, is a very, very hot topic. The Warrens produced no documentation. No independent verification came from anyone who said, yeah, that's what they were talking about. Like I said, they didn't even get involved until after the Lutzes left. So your laboratory has already changed when they've left. And really the idea was, let's help the Lutzes out of this situation. Let's get some money in their pockets. Let's support DeFeo's insanity plea. And let's sell some books. And we'll all make some money. And what's the freaking harm? You mentioned it, so I'll let you take it. The Warrens produced a photo of something they called the Demon Boy.
Yep. Yeah, the Demon Boy, also referred to, like, if you type it in, you'll see the Ghost Boy. And that's one where it really, this is no matter where you search it up, this is basically, like, for the Warrens, this is their smoking gun. This is the one that this is for us. This is what they hinge the entire, demonic aspect of the Amityville house was based off of this image of the boy. And that's what one of the problems that they have, like the critics that really go off of this is they, one, because there was, and we've talked about this in many shows too, where the importance of documenting everything, who's there, where they were, all these aspects. None of this was done. There weren't, for all the the bad talk that they get, Ghost Adventures, at least when they do some stuff, they'll take like a series of photographs. You'll have like the snaps, and all of a sudden in between like the 3 or 4 photographs, there's that one that has that weird distortion. Okay, well, there's no way to really explain why that happened, but at least you have the evidence behind it, where I just took a picture of this hallway. The clicks before and after show nothing, but this one in the center shows this weird mass, kind of coming up. Okay, you have potentially something there because you documented it. Well, the Ghost Boy, it's a single photograph, which they're pretty sure, and I'm trying to find his name because I want to make sure I attribute to the fellow researcher that was there with him. His name, you probably have his name handy.
I actually don't. So.
Oh God! So I'll try to find it. It's
okay.
Yeah, but it's so as we go here. Don't let me.
It wasn't Gerald. It wasn't Gerald Brittle, was it?
I think that's who
wrote the book, The Demonologist.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I think that name sounds right.
Yeah, he wrote a book about them, Gerald Brittle.
Yeah, because he was part of the investigation team, if I'm not mistaken.
And then he kind of turned on him.
Mm-hmm. I think it was because of that.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No. You continue. No, that's why I said. Yeah, you got more like when he turned is because one of those things he could see. It's like, all right, they've run with something that clearly, isn't what it's being made out to be. And I think you said it earlier. It's one of those things. It's kind of, it's been like a lot of things. I mean, it's going through. If you have somebody that stakes a reputation on something, and it turns out to either be found out that it was a fake photo or it does something like this, there's always that. Where's the accountability side? Because you just told me all these feelings, all these impressions you have on this photograph. Well, it turns out it was AI or it was something like that. It's like, okay, I'm really questioning your abilities now because you just came up with all these impressions on something that's not even real. Right. And so I think that's kind of where their falling out was. It's just they wanted to go one direction, and he's like, I'm not going with you.
I still think that's why, and this came up recently somewhere, I don't know, but I think that's why the tall guy left TAPS, Ghost Hunters. I think he just couldn't take it anymore. I think everybody has their line, and once that line is crossed, so Gerald Brittle, who wrote The Demonologist about them, claims they told him to exaggerate their stories. They encouraged him to do it. And also they claim to have worked 10,000 cases. That's a lot of demons. That's also a lot of cases. That's a lot of cases. Even if you do one a day for every day of the year, that's still what, 30 years? Ridiculous. So I made a lot in the beginning. I kind of wrote y'all an IOU that I'd like to pay off now. And this is about Ronnie DeFeo's demonic possession claim. This has never, thankfully, but probably not surprisingly, this has never gained any credence in any court of law in America, certainly in modern times. Well, probably not surprising, the Warrens were involved, and I did an episode, I think of the 1970s, of Parallels, Patterns, and Pathways, where I talked about this, so I'm going to go real fast on it. But they had done a case in Brookfield, Connecticut, the Warrens, where there was a 19-year-old man named Arnie Cheyenne Johnson who was charged with the murder of his landlord. He stabbed him to death. And this was the devil made me do it defense. So, look up Arnie Johnson, A-R-N-E, Johnson, and the devil made me do it defense. There's been movies, there's been documentaries about this. Here's the story. The Warrens had been trying to help this family, the Glatzel family, who claimed that their 11-year-old son, brother, David, who was Arnie's girlfriend's brother, was possessed by a demon. Arnie thought that he would help out. He stood up to the demon. You see this in the paranormal shows all the time. Mm-hmm. He calls out or stands up to the demon, and suddenly he was possessed, and that's why he killed his landlord. Not because his landlord was stooping the girl that he liked or anything like that, or he was playing his music too loud. Yeah, it was a demon. And again, we have the Warrens. So I'm sure when William Weber was doing his work to defend Ronnie, and there's this talk of, I was hearing voices, and, however, whether Ronnie came to him with that or Weber put it on him, the Warrens were the people that you wanted to talk to. Then all you need was a good storyteller. You bring Jay Anson in on it, and you got the whole package. In the case of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson, the judge called BS outright. He said, you are not bringing the devil made me do it in here. You understand what a dangerous thing that is to either entertain that. But that's kind of, Anson was a fiction writer. He structured it like a novel more than journalism, which, our books are not structured like novels. And our case histories, if I wanted to make them into more novelesque, I could have. But that's not what a case study is. That's not what a case book is.
No, because that's one of the claims always been, they did it strictly for money. I mean, and even then, there's not really any hard evidence that they made a vast fortune off of this story. The Amityville, other people, because like for the the Warrens, I mean, the estimate is anywhere from $20,000 to about $200,000 total is what they probably gained through speaking fees, book sales, just through things where it's a lot. For a lot of people, that is a lot of money, but it's not one of those things where you could easily point a finger and say that they specifically capitalized on this, and this is their sole focus. But like I said, when it doesn't help the case against the Warrens, when you have Lorraine going, like I said, this is probably the most evil I've ever faced, I've ever experienced in this thing. And when you have other people that are in there, they're like, that's, that wasn't what we experienced. We didn't experience this, this terrifying evil. It was just like, after a while you get tired of cupboards slamming behind you.
Yeah.
Dishes breaking, it's all stuff, but you're not blood dripping down the walls. People are getting thrown into the seal. It's like I said, it's nothing like you see on Conjuring or, you know,
Right.
it's these some of these, exact, expanded ones. This is, for me, that was the thing. It's like I think they just, there's like they sensationalized for the fact that they, it kept them in the, it kept, kept them modern, kept them,
Yeah.
kept them in the limelight, and that's which it's human nature. You want to have attention. You want your 15 minutes of fame to keep going, and so as it fades, you got to come up with that sound bite that gets people hooked to go see your next speaking event.
Yeah. And genuine hauntings involve sentient beings who do not perform on command. So there were nights that Tanya and I had 20 people in the web library, and they paid good money, and very little happened. Very little happened. And we never made anything up. So it's rough. It's easy. You could see a film crew shows up. They only have 3 days in the supposedly haunted house. The producers getting paid. They have to put their season together, and nothing's happening. Okay, well, they heard a door slam. They know they heard a door slam, but the freaking camera wasn't on. So is it so bad if we have somebody go down the hallway and slam the door? It's just to recreate, and that's how those conversations. That's how those conversations start. I do want to address Joe's thing here. That was the leading edge of the Satanic Panic, which was really getting going. In the early 80s, when I was in middle school, that was the kids are playing D&D and they're drinking each other's blood and all this kind. I have a terrific
Stranger Things, Stranger Things talks about it all the time.
Stuff. Yeah. It was real, and it was dangerous. And it was hurtful. And being a young D&D player is a little confusing. So certainly by the time the Amityville movie came out in 79. So
it's nothing quite like having the thing that you love to do and everybody's looking at you like you're a devil worshiper because you decided you wanted to be a bard that's going around carrying everybody's potions as you're walking down the castle, the castle hallway. I mean, it's like, that's real satanic, people.
That's the first. That's the first writing I ever did as a writer, as an author, was creating D&D. And now I'm like an immersive and escape room designer. Well, I've been doing it since I was 12 years old when I was designing, on graph paper, designing D&D campaigns. So I mean, there's a lot of us who have very fond memories of whole lost weekends in a friend's basement where they left us alone except to bring us food, and it was just so cool. It was amazing. If any of my old D&D friends from Wayne, New Jersey, 82 to 84, if any of you ever happen to watch this show, or reach out to me, that would be so
how cool
fun.
would that be if the whole group is still around, still, nobody's had anything major medical or something like that you guys could actually meet up for a weekend at some place and actually relive, and actually play again.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
Finish a campaign so cool. You're never able to.
No, and you couldn't, because they just went on forever. And I love it. It was so seminal to shaping my life. But anyway, so there have been 9 official films. 9. We have 3 of them, right? There was Amityville, then there was a sequel, then there was the remake with Ryan Reynolds. The house still draws tourists, which I'm not surprised at all. If I'm ever in Long Island near Amityville, I would go drive past the house. That would be cool as hell. Except it gets thorny because it's the exploitation of a tragedy, right? There's a big, some of our audience may be following this, but there's the Axe Murder House, where there's a big controversy about the Axe Murder House now, and the management and the all this stuff. It's really, really interesting. Well, the Jack the Ripper walking tours in London, in the East End. they call it dark tourism, right? People who go to the concentration camps, right? There's a new movie out called A Real Pain with Jesse Eisenberg wrote it and directed it, and Kieran Culkin, who's a brilliant actor, they're in it, and doing this dark tourism, which I studied a lot for something that I was working on. So, but
kind of on that one is like what kind of a little bit what we're talking about. It's like one of the trends, especially like over in Auschwitz and stuff, is like TikTok and everything. You have people doing TikTok dances and doing other stuff at Auschwitz, and doing like, oh my God, look at me as you're sitting here next to this pile of shoes and stuff. And especially on like you're into this stuff, that if there's any like residual spirits that are hanging around the stuff, you know that can't go over well when this is a place like the Axe Murder House or even Amityville. You go these things. If you have somebody come like, oh my God, look at here, I'm right over here where the mom and dad were killed. Just that there can't be out of the realm of possibility that there's going to be an adverse reaction from the other side to this, this levity over what actually occurred at these places. And so, so it'd be the same way. It's like Jack the Ripper. I mean, you have prostitutes that have been brutally murdered, and you've got, for lack of better terms, like in biblical thing, you've got the money changers in the temple. Well, the spirits are going to pretty much do like the Jesus thing, and they're going to throw they're going to want to turn the tables over because you're basically capitalizing over my suffering. And, it's like, it's not about reverence. It's about, how much can I make off of these people's misery?
And I think because we're already over an hour, and I don't want to go real sideways, but there's a great scene in Beetlejuice where the chubby guy or Ortho conjures, and they're falling apart, and they look like they're in so much pain and torment and all. When Tanya and I did the web library, there was another group that would go in, I think once a month or whatever. And it was like, that game Boggle where you press the bubble and the dice. Well, when we would go in after they were in there, that's what the place was like. It would take several days for everything to kind of settle back down because they were using lasers and throwing baby powder in the air, trying to, get a shape to manifest and running all kinds. Tanya and I used very, very little equipment, and there were certain things that I didn't like. Equipment that puts energy into the air. How do we know that that's not like the version of electrocuting a spirit, right? And then before the web, as we were winding down and the web was fixing to close, they put money into it to update it. So they took out the good wooden furniture, they put in plastic furniture. They were doing a lot of rewiring. Some of the spirits that we had been talking to for 2 years, that we had a lot of documentation and their stories, and dozens of people had connected with them in one way or another. Or there was a doctor, and we would let one or two people in the room where the doctor used to have his offices ask the doctor questions, not like real serious medical questions, of course, but ask him different questions. And they were amazed. And there was a woman, if it's not in the web library book, watch out for the hallway, which Joe and Rosemary published under Visionary Living. If it's not in that one, then it's in Roommates from Beyond as an addendum. But a woman who was trying forever to get pregnant asked the doctor without telling us, and the doctor said she was not only going to have a baby, but he even picked the sex. And she wrote to us and said, here it is 6-7 months later, and it's come true. So those but the doctor started to disappear. Some other entities that were in there, and then some of the other psychics that we worked with when Tanya and I left North Carolina were like, oh, there's this new group in there right now, and they're really kind of like worst nightmare, like weekend warrior types. and the spirits are really unhappy. The spirits are really unhappy. So that was confirmation for us. So that went a little sideways. I apologize for that.
No, that's what this show's about.
Going sideways. So the night the DeFeos died, folks, this not only covers that, but then in the back it really kind of unpacks a lot of what went on with the deal making, with the fabrications. Do I think that the Lutzes completely lied? I don't, Craig. I don't. I think they were in a bad situation. They saw a way out, and they did what was right to try to save their family, which didn't really work out for them anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it was. I don't think the entire story was fabricated. I think it was just one of those. There was the initial, just like anybody. It's a haunted house. There's a haunting. There's stuff happening. They, they're freaked out like anybody would be. If you just move into a place and, like you said, stuff starts happening. Like you said, cupboards are slamming, doors are slamming. Kids are freaked out. Yes, you want to get out of there. And then, like I said, it's one of those. This is one of those groups where you have people that are fervent, Warren, support. These guys are the real deal. And then you have the other people that see, and I said, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think they possibly, that they had abilities, they had stuff like this, but they were also they weren't stupid. They knew when they had something that was kind of like their ticket to get on the scene. And this was that moment. And I think they were more than happy to go along with the narrative that this was a legitimate, severe haunting, and we're going to, this is going to be our ticket. We're going to punch it. And that's what I think, I think they did. As I said, I think there's legitimate aspects to it, but I also think it was one of those where the story just got out of hand and had to keep getting more and more sensationalized to keep everybody relevant and keep people interested.
I didn't thank you, because I didn't say that. I was talking to the Warrens about somebody in the field, and they're like, well, you know what Ed was before he was a demonologist? He was a school bus driver. So, and, but I do believe that Lorraine had genuine abilities. But when that Lord comes, we all have, going back to kind of what Joe said, maybe I can find that quickly. Let's end with that quote that Joe put up.
The good of free will must entail real choices for sin. That one, or
yeah. I think that's,
or the Henry Fool quote on this.
Nope, that was the one. Here it is. The good of free will must entail real choices for sin. We all have to decide how far we're willing to go. Or what we'll say to get, in Tanya and I's case, what to say to get on television, or what to get into a certain radio podcast or something.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like you guys said that interview. You guys could have gone sensational. You could have been the Mothman swooped down, picked me up. And then realized, I wasn't the right choice, and he took Tanya and I flew her off, and you could come up with this just outlandish thing. And guess what? You guys would be on the speaking tour.
Yeah,
you guys.
But how do you make that?
And then you have to keep. Then you basically, it's the deal with the devil. Now you have to keep sensationalizing it, and you have to keep this story going. To keep yourself. It has to be. Then you have to talk about, the talons that were digging into my arm, and I still have this mark right here that was left by the Mothman. That's my scar. And at some point, you're going to have the same group. You're going to have the people that would believe you, and you'd have the other people that are say they're completely full of it. And that's kind of what's happened with the Warrens. It's like they had people that, because they decided to go for the sensational over just, here's what we can, here's what we feel, here's what we can prove. But because they went, this is the most evil demonic, experience we've ever encountered, which didn't jive with what everybody, it's like you said, sounds like those Jeepers Creepers movie. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing. It's just, I think that was the part, is just, they went down a path that there was only one way to go. You had to continue with it or lose a lot of the credibility that, in the cloud that you're building. And there's no off ramp if you make that choice.
Right. And Joe, of course, was married to arguably one of the most famous paranormal investigators in the world. And she went out with her integrity intact.
Mhm.
60 books, TV shows, investigated all around the world, made presentations, totally beloved, and never compromised her integrity. So it can be done.
Yep.
It absolutely can be done. And Tanya and I,
the right path is hard. Yeah, the right path is hard. It's not. That's why it's a lot of people. It's the path least traveled. Is because it's not a smooth, glorious, smooth path with the lights and all pretty. It's those pictures you see. You got the immaculate path, and then you got this one that's all jagged rocks, thorns, just gnarled, walkway, and nobody wants to go that way because it's hard.
Yes. And that's, and Joe says it. We'll give him the last word on the subject. As Rosemary's partner for a long time. And we miss her. We miss her every day. Although she's been helping Tanya lately, which has been terrific. So thank you all. Thank you, Craig. Next week, guys, it's going to be heavy. Talk about a story, Craig, that if you go, okay, if this is real, if this is legit, this is heavy. This is heavy that people are coming up with this. So Butterfly Revolution, thanks to Joe Redmouse for turning us on. This is Joe was a good co-pilot today. We got to promote Mark Eddy's book, which is outstanding. I love that we did that. And we're going to let the puppet man take you guys home. Craig, say your thing, man.
Yep. Don't be sinister. Stay mysterious.
There you go, folks. We will see you next week. We're looking forward to it.
Do you have a sinister mystery in mind? Let us know by sending us a DM or comment in the chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, stay mysterious.